Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you for tuning in. I am so excited to share this full glam makeup tutorial with you guys. This is perfect if you're gonna go see Beyonce, or if you just feel like being sexy, then stay tuned and see how I achieved this look. Today my beautiful model was Brianna. She is naturally gorgeous, but she was going on a date tonight, so I wanted to make sure that her makeup fit the occasion, you know? First things first, I moisturized her face. I didn't show that on camera, but I did moisturize her with the Embroylise Cream, but use whatever moisturizer you have. And then I went in with the MAC Mattifying Primer. It claims to be 40 hours. I can't say that is 100% true, but I do like that primer for oily girls. And then I'm going in with the e.l.f. Brow Gel. I tried both the Anastasia and the e.l.f. and I must say I prefer the e.l.f. The Anastasia is just a little bit too like greasy for me. It doesn't really keep your brows laid for a long time. I then go in with some loose setting powder just to lock those brows in place. I don't like to leave them wet because then I feel like they just go back to regular. And by wet, I mean like just with the eyebrow gel. So I set them with powder, and now I am going in with these two concealer shades. One is from Milani and the other one is L'Oreal Infallible. I love these two concealers. If you're looking for an affordable concealer option, these are definitely on my top list. And if you want any more makeup recommendations, we sell makeup guides to help you. They include everything from primers, moisturizers, concealer, and we have two versions, one for dry skin and normal skin, and one for oily to combination skin, and they are on sale for $11.99. I'll have the link in bio, or you could also purchase it at makeupbytati.org. But yeah, I had these two concealer shades because I didn't know how bright I wanted to go under her brow bone, and I didn't show, but I did eventually bring up that lighter shade to her brow bone. And I also use that shade to prep her lids for eyeshadow. And as you can see, I'm just buffing that in with a buffing brush. I love this concealer brush, especially for those like hard to reach places. And then I'm going in with some loose powder just to set that, because I don't like going in on a wet base unless I'm going straight in with shimmer, because it's always best to go in with shimmer on a wet lid in my opinion. And then I'm going in with this taupe shade, and I'm really just buffing that on the edges of her eye. And you see the motion I'm using. I'm patting and then I'm buffing just to really get that color payoff, because if I go straight in there blending, we're not going to get much of that color. So first I like to pack that color in and then buff the edges. If I'm not explaining that well, I'm sorry girl, just look at the video. Gonna keep on going in with that color until I get the color payoff that I would like. And you'll see I'm gonna grab a clean brush and I'm gonna blend the edges of that, because whenever you're working with grays, and I say gray because this taupe appeared kind of gray, when you're working with darker shades like that, they could be kind of hard to blend out. So I like to go in with a clean brush just on the edges, that way I'm not bringing that color all the way up to her brow bone. And then I'm going to go in with a gray shade from that same Anastasia palette. All the products will be linked in the description. And I'm pressing this on the outer corner of her eyes, using that same patting and buffing motion to get that color payoff. And I'm also going back and forth with a clean brush just to blend out the edges. And then I'm gonna go in with some black, and to get a sharp edge I'm just using a business card of mine, but you could use tape or paper, whatever you have, or you don't have to use anything at all, and you could just go in and clean it up with concealer in the end. But this is just a trick that I like to use. I find that it gives me the perfect line that I'm trying to achieve. And I'm simply stamping this black in the shape of a winged liner. And then I'm going back in with that dark gray that we used, and I'm buffing out that black because I want everything to be smoked out, not so defined, just a beautiful blur. And you see I go in with a smaller brush with that gray shadow to really get in there because that other brush wasn't really doing what I needed it to. So I just go back and forth blending. Whenever working with darker shades, you're going to be doing a lot of that. But trust the process because it just turns out so beautiful. And as you can see, I'm just going back and forth blending. I have the original brush I used, and I'm just going around the edges of that black and that gray. And I'm just merging it into one. And then I'm going in with some white concealer on the like 1/3 of her eyelid to get ready for the base color that I want to lay down. I don't want to go just straight on top of those shadows that we use, so what I'm doing now is basically re-priming her eyelid. And I'm using white because I was going to put white on top of it. So I'm just patting and kind of buffing. And this brush is from Ruby Kisses. I love their brushes. They're very affordable. You can find them at the beauty supply. And then I'm going in with this white shadow, and I'm just pressing that right on top of that base we created. And I realized I don't want a matte look, so I took some silver and I'm pressing this around the edges. Typically I like to go in on a wet base with glitters, but it's fine for this one time. So yeah, I'm just stamping that glitter on the beginning and the edges of that white to create a beautiful illusion. And then I'm going back in with that blending brush that we keep on going back to, and I'm just buffing out the edges. And let me say, I finally got my hands on the Inglot black liner, and it's everything y'all hyped it up to be. It's amazing. So I'm going in with some of that just to deepen up this look even more, because although we did use black shadow, it's just something about a black gel liner that intensifies the look, and you'll see what I'm talking about right now. But after I go in with that eyeliner, I immediately buff it out with a small smudge brush, again because we want everything to look smoked out and beautiful. And then I go in with some concealer and just sharpen up those lines. And for foundation, I'm going in with Nars Tahoe, I believe, but I also did add some blue pigment to balance out the yellowness in the foundation. And I know it appears a little yellow on camera, but it was just fine, and you'll see we balance it out with the concealer and contour. I like to spread the foundation all over my client's face before buffing it in. That way I get an even coverage all throughout her face. And I didn't get the part, but I did lay down contour. I believe I used L'Oreal Infallible Concealer in the shade 420 around the perimeters of her face. And I'm just buffing that in with the same foundation brush that I used. And I also am going down the bridge of her nose to give her that snatched nose appearance. And as you can see, I do bring it up to the brow bone because I like the effect that that gives. But if you're not trying to give the illusion of a longer nose bridge, then I suggest that you stay away from this part, but it's just something I like to do. And then I'm going in with these two concealers, again Milani and L'Oreal. And I'm using the Milani first as a base, and it's going to be a transition for the lighter concealer that I plan to go in. I don't like to go straight in with a really bright concealer. And then I'm taking that L'Oreal and I'm placing that on the inner and outer corners of her eyes to snatch her face. And you'll see what I mean whenever I blend it out. And I'm also putting some on her chin, center of her forehead, and down her nose bridge for some balance. And I know my line wasn't straight, but it's okay, we end up fixing it. And then I spray her face with some Super Hold, just because I like to blend out concealer after it's sat for a little bit, but I do want it damp, so I re-dampen it with setting spray, and that also helps with longevity. And then I'm going in with my Cutie Lifestyle sponge, and I am blending out that concealer, but as you can see, when I'm blending it out, I'm keeping it in the places that I placed it. I'm not blending this concealer down to her contour or moving my sponge too much. I'm trying to keep that concealer where we placed it because we want it there for a reason. And I'm just making sure I blend out any creases, and I'm going in with that small concealer brush to get around her nose, and I'm just reinforcing that contour on her nose as well because it kind of got lost in that concealer. And then I'm blending the edges of that again with that foundation brush we used to blend her contour. Then I'm going in with the Maybelline Fit Me setting powder to set underneath her eyes. I love this powder because it has some coverage to it and it photographs beautifully, y'all. I love this powder. It's up there with my Huda Beauty. And I'm just going over all the places that I placed that concealer. And then I'm going in with the Fit Me press powder on the remaining parts of her face that we haven't set yet. You'll see I even go over her contour with this powder. Not really for the color, but just to make sure all her face is set. And that way, whenever I do go in with the bronzer, I'm not just going in on top of a wet base because that could make your makeup look kind of patchy. And then I'm going in with that loose powder again just to bake underneath her eyes, and I'm doing this for some extra brightness. I then go in with MAC's Deep Dark, and I'm just going over all the places we cream contour, just bronzing her up around the perimeters of her forehead, down the bridge of her nose. And I'm not caring to make her contour much darker than what it is, but just more so reinforcing that color. I'm going in with the Juvias Place Volume 2 palette, and I'm using the lighter blush shade first, and then I go in with the darker shade on the higher parts of her cheek. And then with that gray shadow, I'm using that smudge brush to go underneath her eyes, because if you're going to do a full glam like this, you need eyeshadow on the lower lash line. It just helps balance the look. And what is a look if you have all this bold eyeshadow on your lids and no eyeshadow underneath? And then I'm taking that Inglot liner and I am lining her lower lash line just to further intensify this look. And it's really all the details that bring this look together. And then I go in with these two setting sprays, Morphe Continuous Mist as well as the Makeup Revolution Super Hold. I like the mist to really melt those powders in, and you see I go in with a sponge immediately after because this to me is like the final step. Like, I must do this step to love my makeup because it just makes everything melt together so beautifully, especially when we're going in with all these powders. And then I'm going in with the Morphe face palette in the shade 8F, 8 Fair, and I'm using the pink shade with a little bit of shimmer as a highlighter. I've been liking to do this lately rather than going in with a gold or silver highlighter. I like to use pink because it blends with the blush and gives you a beautiful glow from within. And then for the brows, I like to do brows last. I'm going in with the eyebrow pomade from Morphe. And I don't know, doing brows last for some reason is way easier to me than doing them first. But do what you feel is right. With this look, I paired it with a nude glossy lip, although you could pair it with any color you would like. And this was the final look on my gorgeous model Brianna. I hope you guys enjoyed it just as much as I had fun creating it for you guys. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Be sure to book your appointments online at makeupbytati.org. We also offer one-on-one classes. Thanks for watching.